Hey everyone, and welcome to my very first recap video. And this recap video is about the Las Vegas National Open, where I ended up getting second place for under 1700 section, which was pretty mediocre, I know. And but I got first place with the doubles, which is like tied for first place for best female and male. So they count up, the males points and as well as the females points, and then we add them all together and we compare it to the people who also registered. And I ended up getting paired with Andrea Botez. You might have seen me on one of her videos on the Botez Live. Go check it out if you guys haven't. But yeah, this tournament has been one of the best when it comes to feeling like famous. It was pretty weird. They paid for my hotels, like the Vegas Great Nights paid for my hotel, which is like it's a chess company that teaches elementary students and chess basically. And I worked for them, and they ended up paying for my hotel and paying for my food, which was pretty amazing. So without further ado, I'll just show you my first game. So this is round one. So I'm white, and I'm marked with I believe a 1545 opponent, so not that high. He did state that he did have a Canada, like he came from Canada, and he does have a Canadian like ELO rating, and he said the ratings in Canada is a lot more overinflated. So he said he was like around 2000 in Canada. I don't know what that means, but yeah, so far my opponents weren't that tough. So I played with e4, he played c5, and another thing, I purchased this book from Chessable, and Chessable is by far, a great way for you to learn your openings. I ended up getting a good book, which is called the Anti-Sicilian Toolkit by Alex Benzea, and Alex Benzea just goes over such a great job over the Sicilian that every time I play the Sicilian, I usually win the game. And I played knight f3, and he played knight c6, and the line is bishop to b5. And he plays g6, which is the main line, so I take. And instead of taking this way, which is d takes c6, which is main line, where when he takes it towards c6, I play d3, knight c3, h3, castles, knight h2, f4, and we get this position which is very simple to play for white. But instead he takes with the b pawn. Now this is a little bit different. I play d4, and there's a few lines here which I haven't really studied because not a lot of players play it. He could play for the bishop g7 line, where I take, and then he does queen a5 check, and I believe I do knight b to d2. Or he can just take right away, and when you take right away, there's a difference now. You take with the queen because you're attacking the rook. So then he plays knight f6. I play e5, knight d5, and here I do queen h4 with the idea of after bishop g7, I'm going to play bishop h6. And he does not allow that with h6, which is a good move by him because you do not want to have a trade of dark square bishops when you have dark square weaknesses on your king side. So then I castle. The reason I castled so early was because I was trying to think, should I play c4 right away or should I castle? And I castled because I was thinking of bishop a6 ideas, which was kind of annoying to stop me from castling. So then he does bishop g7, and here I play c4. And so far I've played Alex Benzea's main recommendation on all my moves, but here I was thinking maybe if I played c4, now this bishop is getting very strong because I kind of want to play c3 instead of c4, trying to blunt the bishop. So I play knight c3 to prevent knight c2 winning my rook. Instead he does knight d3, I do queen to e4, protecting the pawn. Then he takes, and I bring my other rook, my a rook. And then he plays rook b8, and now I play b3. And I play b3 because I want to solidify the center. Well, solidify these pawn chains because this bishop is going to be very inactive. It's going to be really hard to open up the position when my pawn's still on e5, as well as also the pawn on c4 is preventing d5 pushes, right? So then he castles. I do rook f to d1, putting more pressure and lining up to the queen x rein. And then he does queen a5, which ends up being a very, very strong move, because right now he's threatening d6. He's threatening d6 here. And the reason why he's threatening is because I'll end up losing the pawn, or I'll have to go back. Because if I take, then now there's two attackers for the knight. So I do queen e3. He does, rook d8. And here I do like my biggest mistake, which I kind of like really felt it throughout the whole game, because I felt really good here. And I should have played rook d2 to prevent this, this queen from attacking the pawn on a2, or I could even go knight a4. I mean, knight a4 doesn't do anything, but like rook d2 was obviously a better move, which I thought. But then I thought like, oh, there's x-rays on the rook, but my knight's still defending it. I don't know. I ended up playing rook d3, and I ended up feeling it much sooner than I thought. I thought rook d3 was okay, but then he played d6, and now there's a problem, because after I take and take, I'm trying to see how do I stop this bishop from going to f5 or g4. And here I should probably play knight d4 here. But instead I play h3, getting a loft for my king, as well as preventing bishop g4. And here I see a problem. I see that after bishop f5, I can't do rook d2, the move that I wanted, because now he has rook to e8, and my queen has to go somewhere, and this knight is going to end up being lost. I can't go here. I can't go to d4. So I end up just losing the knight. So if bishop f5 was played, here in this position, like I have to play rook d1. I gotta play rook d1 to prevent this and to keep my queen on d2. But he doesn't play that. He does a weird move. He does rook b7. And rook b7, I mean, I just saw that and I was like, what are you doing? Now I play knight to d4 because bishop f5 is such a threat. But still, my position isn't that good, because I ended up bringing my rook to d3. And you notice that just one move makes your position almost unplayable. Rook c7, which again, really weird move going here and here. And I do queen f3, and queen f3 is a blunder again. And I just wanted to bring the bishop to b7 or to d7, something very inactive. But here I missed that he could just play d5, and you see that the rook on c1 is actually hanging. And I mean, the best would probably like takes an a4, yeah, going to knight b5, knight d to b5. But still the position is like nearly lost. But here he plays bishop b7. I do queen e2, and that was my main idea. I wanted to go queen f3 to make the bishop to go here, and then queen e2. So now bishop f5 is never going to come. And now he does bishop takes d4. And here I take a while to take, because I just don't understand why he would give up his very strong bishop and leave himself with a bad piece, right? Bad piece versus a good knight. And it didn't make sense. So I took queen g5, and I did see this. I was like, okay, what are you trying to do? Like trying to fork me or something? But like I have rook g4 regardless. And I double. Also, he's trying to attack my my rook here. So I double rook e7, which is something I calculated. So I calculated c5, right? I calculated c5, and then I looked at f4, but then I saw like queen to e6, and then I saw knight to e4, and then he has queen e6, and then my rook's hanging, my knight's hanging, didn't work out. Then I saw queen g, like rook g4, which was my main move, rook g4, but instead he does rook to e7, which I did calculate, and I just thought it was completely bad, because after queen d2 he has to trade. I'm threatening this pawn, threatening the pawn on d6 as well. I would probably take this pawn instead of taking the h6 pawn, because it's more valuable, as well as my rooks are controlling that file. So we end up trading, and I take with the d1 rook because I think my d1 rook is a little bit more better active here, and I think this rook is fine swinging itself over in the future. And then he does this, and then I immediately play knight e4. I grab it and I do it without even thinking for a second, because the whole idea was actually that if he plays c5, I'm going to check and I'm going to pick this up, right? And you notice that the knight's actually trapped. Like, there's where does the knight go? So I noticed this, so then I just take, and which was weird because I actually have knight takes c5, which is something I should have saw. Knight takes c5, and you can't take because the rook's hanging, so he has to play this in order to defend this bishop. I take, and rook takes, and we're gonna end up trading rooks regardless, and we're gonna have a rook endgame where I'm up 2 pawns, and we have a future pass pawn on the c file, which is super easy to win. But instead, I take on the d file because I forgot to mention this game was like my first game back from a really tough tournament where I just wasn't mentally there. Basically meant a little bit of mental problems during that tournament. So I was not feeling confident at all in my play. And he ended up taking, I took. And when I took with the rook, he jumped up from his seat, like he thought I blundered or something. And like when he did that, like my anxiety like rushed, because I guess he was thinking I was gonna take with the knight or something, but like I take and the rook's hanging. You can't just take, because I'll just take, right? So he does rook to c8 to prevent knight takes, and then I play f3. And the idea of f3 is to blunt this bishop. You notice that this bishop is a bad piece, and the second, like let's say he takes, I'll take, and if he goes to rook e8, then I'll do rook c6. He takes, I go to king f2, and like, oh, probably not. Rook takes c6. Yeah, I'll do rook takes c6, and then it's just going to be an easy endgame where I just check and push my pawn, right? But he does rook to c7, and here I just offer a trade of rooks, right? It looks like I just lost my rook, but I have knight check on f6, and I pick it up, and I force a trade. So not only that, I also win the pawn on c5 by force, because there's no way you can defend it because you have a light square bishop. And now I see this idea where my knight is almost trapping the bishop. The bishop can only go to f5, and I want to play g4, but then I thought h5 is annoying. He can just tear down my my whole kingside structure doing this. So I can't just do that. So I just bring my king to f2, king d6, and then I play b4, f5, and as soon as I see f5, that's an indicator where he doesn't understand his endgame, because I play f4, and the idea is to actually restrict this bishop. Anywhere he goes, I'm just going to take, because I'm up, I believe I'm up 2 pawns. Yeah, I'm up 2 pawns, so whatever endgame, I'm going to win the game. He does g5, I just do g3. And then he tries to attack my center, and then I just play a3, we take, and king c6, and then I play h4. And now, once the position is locked, I'm just going to start moving my king. And now he does h5, I play b3, and now I'm going to go to king e5, and this is basically just a game over. He should just resign. Knight to e6, and then I just take. And it's funny because I take, and he's still, like, he gives me a look like he doesn't understand what I'm doing, which makes no sense. I was like, okay. Then I do king to g5, and here he says, like, he literally verbally says, what? And he does this. And the thing is that, like, he thinks he's gonna win these pawns, but no, he's not. I have pawn check, because if you take on b5, I have check on d4, and I pick up the bishop. So I think he's just not having a good calculation day. So he does king b7, I do knight d4, bishop f3, and obviously I can't take because the pawn will promote on f1 faster than I can promote. So I play c6 check, and then I just keep pushing. And here I understand that I'm gonna bring my knight. I'm gonna swing over my knight over here, and then I'm gonna force a queen. I'm gonna force a queen and trade pieces. And here I just wanna win the game. So I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going, keep moving, and then I take. Now I take, hoping for him to take, and he does this, thinking like hoping for a stalemate. And I'm kind of tired of calculating like, I better not get stalemated. So I play knight d6, just saying, okay, take my knight. I don't care. I'm just gonna end up winning. And then he does king e7. I queen. He goes down. He doesn't. He's hoping for a stalemate. King e6. I queen again. And now we just get this little nice checkmate here. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm gonna upload my other rounds as well. But yeah. You guys have a wonderful day.